pretty serious concentration of artists over there. Sorry, this goes with that.
Oh, okay. Here's the other question I had.
Go back to our, I need to go over the next other. First pottery research.
See that one?
Yeah, and
Well, I'm not gonna get out to the students.
the meeting occasion.
This is what our constitution says. Well, it's shared. And then it says that we also have, it's not yes.
I'll go check.
We're reading that.
I'll see what I can do. So once you have a pile of pictures, that's sort of.
Yes.
Yes. A pile of them.
It's open, it's broadcasting, so
And we don't have any joining us.
they might join, they might not. They say, sometimes they tell me they're gonna be here and they don't show up, so
Okay.
I,
All right. Are there,
Programs we have. It's not digital.
John and I here, and I thought you were.
Right, I asked you to designate someone from the faculty to do that.
Oh, I missed that. I'm so sorry.
I can certainly do it today.
Thank you. I apologize.
are we not?
Thank you. I apologize. Okay, we have a quorum, so I'll call us to order. The first agenda item is the approval of the meetings of the minutes from the November 18th and the December 2nd meeting.
I'm going to make a motion to table the December 2nd meeting minutes because they're really messy and they need to be revised.
There was also there's an underlined item on the changes to the emeritus policy that looks like a link, but it didn't link to anything. So there's nowhere we can see the verified corrected policy.
Okay, so how about a motion to approve the November 18th?
I'm also moving.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And yet, could you say a little bit more about what was missing from these
Oh, it's
minutes?
not so much that it's missing, it's just that they're incredibly messy and difficult to read. So it's very hard, especially the EPCC stuff that's on there. I really don't know what's going on. I think we should note what the DPD recommendation was that we passed. I agree with Steve that it's not clear that the emeritus status was approved as amended, and so we need the amendments that Steve put forward. So to me, the minutes aren't complete, and I feel very uncomfortable approving them.
That makes sense. If you could give me after the meeting, if you could give me the information that needs to be picked up, and then I will take it to staff and see what we can do and bring it back next.
Okay, so I made a motion to table them so that we can then reconsider them.
So fine. Second. Motion to table, all in favor of these minutes, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They'll be tabled, and thank
get
you, I'll
that.
give you that information, Stephen, if you could give me that information also, I'll have staff attend to that. Okay, the president will not be with us today, he's given us 4 items in his report, including his update, comments, questions, discussions on the president's update. Go right ahead, Deanna.
Okay. So, do you want to? You go first. I'm always bitching.
Okay, I'll try it. So looking at the bylaws, I don't know if anybody has those, they're pages and pages. Bylaw 2.4 seems to contradict the current constitution, and so we should probably square those things. It says that the president of the university shall establish and define the charge of any and all university committees, councils, and advisory groups.
What page are you on?
It's section 2.4. It's not paginated in my copy.
Okay.
And their draft, my question is, kind of jumped in on you, Phil, since they're a draft, how are we providing feedback? What's the approval process going to be? Those are the sort of things I'm wondering.
And I can't answer those questions.
So if we could just pass it on to him, I'm sure he'll come to the next meeting. And I know he shared these with UC as well, but.
And I don't have any further information. I looked at them for the first time when they were released here also. So my understanding, and Heather, I don't know whether you can clarify that this was a draft. It was a preliminary draft that was shared with us.
That's correct. Drafted by legal counsel of the U.S., Ryan Hageman, and they're also contacting other legal counsel, outside counsel, to get some organic documents together so that we don't have to start from scratch with our work. It's a draft, it's a template. Like the institution board actually has the authority to adopt the bylaws. So they will see them, they just saw them put this draft for the first time. Wednesday, Monday.
So I'm not clear on what the contradiction is.
Well, so, so the section 2.4 basically says, and you have the actual words, right? So it says that the president of the university shall establish and define the charge of any and all university committees, councils, and advisory groups, except for as provided in board action. The establishment and charge of any and all university committees, councils, and advisory groups shall be consistent with law and board action. The recommendation and reports of all committees, councils, and advisory groups made to the president. The president shall inform the executive committee of the board regarding the recommendations and reports relative to the university. And upon request by the chair of the board or majority of the trustees, the president shall provide the board with a recommendation or report from a university committee, council, or advisory group. The way we currently set and the way our constitution states is that the educational concerns and responsibilities of the campus are herein provided to the president, the faculty senate, and the university council. It's to mark the shared governance. So this is a real step of change, which is saying that the president controls all of the committees of the university and provides all of the committees with their charge. Whereas we have always in our past, at least as long as we've been involved in shared governance, shared that. And the university council and the faculty senate are entities outside of the president that work with the president. Now the president obviously has ultimate decision-making power of the university, but I'm uncomfortable making this change to the president deciding whether or not we have a faculty senate, the president deciding whether or not we have a council, the president deciding what the charges of those and how they're going to act. So that's kind of what I meant.
So is that the bylaws are intended for the institutional court, not for university shared government? Right?
Well,
It
yes.
would absurd that wording.
But there will be a policy board policy on shared governance, and
Will be, or that's it?
there will be an addition to that. And I haven't seen that yet, so.
But, and I don't know,
Working on it.
I don't know how we as Senate, I'm concerned, I don't know if the rest of y'all are, but if we as Senate are concerned, how we get this to the board, that this is problematic language and doesn't go along with our current constitution. And I'm also somewhat interested in knowing how this transitioned legally, and this would be useful for legal counsel. We have a constitution, and we have a constitution that refers to the State Board of Higher Education that we have worked with this. And so if we bring on, when we do bring on our board, it seems somewhat reasonable that we can replace State Board of Higher Education in our Constitution with the board that we have been legally given, because that's part of the amending process. But if we do that, what our Constitution says is our shared governance is not what Section 2.4 of the bylaws is saying. And so there's where the problem lies in my mind.
And again, it's just a draft.
Yeah.
We've actually scheduled a conference call with AGB, the Association of Governing Boards. They are the consultant that OUS has assigned to us to help us through this transition. The Shared Governance Coordinating Committee, which consists of the Faculty Senate President, the University Council Chair, Budget and Planning Chair, and ASCOU President, will sit down on that conference call in just about 2 weeks to talk about this very topic and how shared governance dovetails with our board and how we're going to work through all those transitions. So John will be able to bring that information back to you by the next.
And Sarah, when you and I talked about the process of going forward with this, you had told me that we would see a markup of the OARs and a markup of the I interpreted it as a constitution, but our governing documents that I could bring to the Senate so that we could review them. And having this come from the president in this form doesn't seem to be following the guidelines that you told me that we would be following.
Well, I may have misspoken, and since we had met with AGB last fall, I think that was a very early fall conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is the fall.
Okay. And since then, it's become clear to us that there's something that the policies aren't necessarily voted on in shared governance.
And that will be a topic of discussion during our conference call with HB and our legal counsel as well. Ryan Hagan will be part of that call to help us discern a path forward regarding this transition with OARs and policies. Ryan Hagelman has done a lot of work already at the system level to look at policies that we can repeal or OARs that can be repealed because they're either they're duplicated in some way, or I mean, it's pretty clear that they can just go away. So he's made a list of those. And then there's another list of policies that each campus needs to be looking at and getting them in line with how we need to move forward. So for instance, if OUS is referenced in any way, that would be a housekeeping item. We would need to take that out of our policy and move forward.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any concern amongst my senators or from me about housekeeping. It seems that this was drafted without reference to our current constitution. And
bylaws were drafted without reference.
Yes. Yeah, that it was drafted without consideration of our current constitution, and that doesn't seem to be an appropriate way of taking this campus from a governance structure that we have now to the governance structure with a new board. And I agree with what Deanna said, is that we operate under the OUS board now, and it doesn't seem necessary to throw away our constitution, but it could be done as simply as referencing the local board as opposed to the OUS board. And that doesn't seem like it's even been considered in this process.
I think that part of what Heather has just described, there was a chunk of OUS policies that were, that the lawyers were paid to create boilerplate to size it to fit institutional boards.
It seems that
So
their
everybody-
boilerplate didn't consider the
No, it didn't.
current constitution.
You're absolutely right. So each of the true institutions was given the same boilerplate, and the intention was that each institution now needed to put it in its own voice, and that's part of this process. This is just the,
Right, so we're in a different
Boilerplate,
place in this
generic.
process than I expected us to be. I didn't expect this to appear on our agenda without explanation on January 5th. My understanding was that we were going to receive a draft, and we were able to, as a shared governance body, we were going to be working with other shared governance bodies to spell out what we were going to have in our constitution and bylaws. And I appreciate the work that the lawyers are doing with the OARs. I think it's sort of an onerous task of going through and looking for duplicates. But we're going to want to look at that also, because that affects the flavor and the way this university will operate, which is very important for the Senate.
well, I believe that it's going to be an open and transparent process, but it's
This is-
not going to unfold the way
Yeah.
I speculated. It's unfolding in a different way, but it's still going to be open and transparent. And at some point, you know,
That point needs to be sooner rather than later, and I think it coming out this way without reference to our Constitution and out without us having a chance to preview it, and without it marked as a draft is concerning.
It's marked as a draft.
It says draft things, it's not marked on the thing, but it does say on the,
draft plan for,
on the agenda. that-
Yeah, I
just
saw
don't-
that, but I didn't see the mark.
Yeah. I just don't know how we're supposed to get feedback, I don't know this process.
Yeah, we need to establish that process,
So
because
I
it doesn't
think
seem like it's what
So
we talked
January
about.
14th, that phone call will help us set a path forward, I think, as a shared governance coordinating committee to decide the best way to move through this spring, to get everything in place, because time is of the essence.
That's why in November I brought this to the president's attention.
right, and Jay has his timeline for how this is all going to unroll in the next 6 months, so that we're hitting deadlines and milestones for bringing on a new board. So, you know,
And you
I
think that's
guess we
coming
would
out
ask,
of the
we would ask-
January 14th meeting then?
I expect that we'll have a clearer path forward after January 14th.
I'll look forward to
The
hearing.
the intent is for our board to vote on the bylaws in February. So we have to get this going.
I don't think that'll be feasible.
well, I think that if we could indulge your patience for 2 weeks so that you can raise your concerns and ask your questions of the experts who are guiding this transition for all of the true institutions.
Good.
That's what they are being paid to do. You have a-
Peter?
So John, are you wanting us then to, I haven't read through all of that document, I'm fully willing to admit. Are you wanting us to read through that, and if we have feedback provided back to you, sounds like Deanna's already done that, before January 14th, so that you know, are you wanting the faculty senate to address any concerns we have with this current draft?
Well, I didn't expect that we would have to be doing this at this time, because I thought we would have been involved earlier in this. So, I mean, the short answer to your question is yes, I want you to read through. It seems that this is a draft that we are going to be making revisions to, and it seems like it was written without reference to the current Constitution, which is particularly troubling to me.
So if we have concerns, we should email them to you, and then you will be aware of them in that January 14th.
And if you could email a markup of the draft, that would be particularly helpful for me.
I'm not saying I have any concerns, I'm just asking.
Yeah. Other comments?
Will the chair recognize a member of the
Sure. Go ahead.
My name is Alex McCadad. I'm a justice with the Associated Students of Eastern Oregon University. I like what the faculty senate are saying. I do think we should have been involved earlier. It's good that some of these stakeholders are going to be on that phone call, but I think it would be good for at least the faculty senate leadership and ASCU leaders to meet together before the conference call next week to get a better plan going, and perhaps even hold an emergency meeting to declare like a resolution about what we want to see.
Thank you. Other comments? So, senators, if you could spend your time in the next week reviewing this information and sending me your comments, I will discuss it with the officers of the Senate and give you feedback on how we were going to proceed. Other comments on the president's report? Yeah. I'm not hearing anything. I'll try not just to look at Deanna and the table.
I'll try not to talk all the time.
Okay, let's move on to the provost's update. Any questions for the provost on her update and her report? Nicole?
Sir, I just have a question on, a comment and a question. Course evaluations, it sounds like that was a swing and a miss, or something happened. I wonder if the Senate can talk about it. I think we'll make it a discussion item at the next meeting, certainly. I looked at mine, I've got 4 responses in a class of 35. It's ridiculous. So maybe we should be discussing linking grades or something to get that number up. I would hate to attribute it just to the movement to 10th week. So that worries me. Sorry.
Richard?
When I read that, the thought crossed my mind that for 3 years now, students are accustomed to doing their evaluations during finals week or at the end of finals week because that has become the de facto. This change may have blindsided students who were just kind of anticipating doing that.
Yeah. Could have been. I reported to the Senate at our last meeting that a group of us were trying a different technique for encouraging student evaluations. And I'm not ready to report on that because I haven't had a chance to get together with my other 3 researchers that tried with on-campus classes setting aside time in the classes for students to do that, and in the online classes, making an assignment for the students to fill out their evaluations. But what I can tell you is it's promising, and that the evaluation response rate was well over 50% in all the cases. But I want to have a formal report so I can talk about the different issues. I think it's concerning that most of the students were making out their evaluations during finals week, because the issue that the Senate had and the faculty had about making it out during finals week is you see what the final is like, you see what your grade's like, and then you make out your evaluation, which had always been deemed inappropriate. And we always, when we did paper evaluations, we did the paper evaluations before finals. We always did that because of those concerns. So I think there's at least a couple of issues going on here. One, that if our meager response rate, which is 10 to 15%, was cut in half because most people were making out at finals during finals week, that was inappropriate in any case. And that there may be remedies that don't include having the students make out their evaluations during finals week that will fix our response rate. And I don't want to say any more about that because I'm not ready to report that. I'm going to report it to FPC before I report it here, so they're previewed on what we found. But it's very encouraging. Deanna.
I have a question too. Blackboard had an evaluation link, but I don't see that with my Canvas course shows. And so if people went to Canvas and students were doing that, there may not have been an evaluation link. So that to me is another possible reason why the response rate was so low, because I don't see that as an option in the, or on that sidebar for Canvas. And so we've been encouraging people to move to Canvas, and so students in Canvas wouldn't know how to do a course evaluation or where to do a course evaluation, other than the email that's sent out, which tends to get lost in the flurry of life, universe, and everything.
Here.
Does anyone remember the legal? I remember, whatever, 6 years ago. There's a reason we can't have it mandatory, right? There's a reason we can't, and so there's also a reason we can't force them to do it or incentivize them grade-wise with it. I mean, I guess I was hoping to be reminded of all the things we can't do.
Well, I can answer that a little bit differently. Other things that we have tried in the past that appear to have worked that got us to the 50% mark that did not involve 11th week were you can look at your grades early, was an incentive, and built into that incentive was the ability to opt out of filling out the questionnaire. But that was a 10th week thing, not an 11th week. So the one thing that's different, well, maybe two things that are different about this fall cycle of course evaluations is that, A, we apparently didn't alert the students weeks before that they would have to respond to course evaluations in the 10th week, and secondary to that, the only change is it was 10th week rather than 11th, and their behavior. Possibly Canvas, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, if anybody moved to Canvas, I don't know how students would get to the link. I have no idea.
You can create a link if you want to. There's a mechanism.
You'd have to want to or have to know that you had to
or know to do it.
Yeah. They couldn't do this by going to Webster. They couldn't do the evaluation.
Well, I think Angie sends it out to the student
Yeah.
listserv. Not, it doesn't have anything to, it's they might do it inside their course, but they also got the
But on
link.
Blackboard, it was, it's one of those.
Yeah, but if you clicked on the Blackboard link, it took you to Webster.
It took you to Webster, but it was there.
Evaluation was.
Okay, I guess the long and the short of it is this: we should wait for a recommendation from FPC and decide, how soon we're going to implement the new.
And
student course evaluation.
I will have that information to FPC, and I will be reporting to the Senate at our next February meeting. I think we will be encouraged.
That was my comment. I had a question as well, which was on point 5, the initiative to offer 1 and 200 level online courses to high school students. And I wondered if you could speak to this a little bit more so that we can tell our constituents what's up.
Could you narrow the...
It says the efficacy of making all of our courses online, open at a certain point, open to anybody.
Certain sections.
Right now, we're...
Just curious what you're thinking.
Okay, where to start? I'll give you the broad brush first, rather than the detail. High school students sometimes have, no, I'll go back further. Statewide, there's an initiative about accelerated learning.
Yes.
Those of you who have children that are high school students probably already know that in the junior and senior year, there's a paucity of courses that students have to take. So there's a push and some pressure statewide to offer high school students accelerated learning opportunities. Eastern Promise is part of that, the credit by proficiency that's connected with college-level courses taught by high school teachers that are approved by program faculty. And Dan Milkey is overseeing that credit by proficiency. There's dual enrollment. We've always had AP and CLEP and all of those sorts of mechanisms for high school students to get early college credits. What's different about this is it's another initiative.
So not Eastern Promise?
No, it is not Eastern Promise. This comes at it a little bit differently in an environment where high schools are pushing to have, some high schools are pushing to have a 5th year where they offer college level courses for students, you know, who are going to be moving on to a college environment or to get them ready for college through early college credits. EOU is trying to position itself to get out in front of that by offering online 100, possibly 200 level courses to juniors and seniors in high school who have a 3.0 grade point average. And it would be taught by EOU faculty rather than turning that over to high school.
But these would be specific sections for
Yes.
those high school students. They wouldn't be just general sections that anybody could enroll in.
Right, right. And part of the, then I could turn to Elwin here in a second, and I may. Part of the Eastern Promise protocol had been that all of the online courses were, and on-campus courses are available to high school students. If students want to walk over from LeGrand High, they can and sit in and take for credit a Writing 121 or History 101 or 201. That they can do that for a certain tuition credit rate. This opens it up to the online potential. And right now we've had a specific request from Malheur County and from the counties that Eastern Oregon serves for some online high school college courses for students in high school to take. And we ran a very limited pilot this winter. We have a couple of COM courses, a COM 111 and COM 112 that filled up really quick in a very short window for high schools. And we have a site 201 that we're running as kind of an experiment to see is that going to work or not. Spring term we're opening still a limited pilot. We're continuing the pilot, a roster of selected but very limited slate of courses that I have requested to be costed out to see how, you know, what would it cost us to make a little bit of money and to recover some of our SCH.
And these students are getting Eastern credit, not necessarily dual credit.
No, these are just Eastern credit. These aren't the dual enrollment.
And they aren't identified. We wouldn't know that they're in our class.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, the way we're building
the
this,
way we're
yes.
planning on doing it is we have specific sections designated for the high school students. If you're teaching one of the sections, you're going to know the students in the high school.
I didn't get that.
And the way I'm going to have the students tag and banner, they can only get in and register at Webster for the classes that we designate to be for high school students.
So what's the rationale for not mixing it with the other online students? If it's college credit, it's college credit.
Well, I think part of that had to do with enrollment management, making sure we got available seats for our students and for high school students. We can do that, but I think that's the concern.
So one of the, let me finish and then I'll come back to you. One of the issues about doing this is that if we sequester the high school students in a class, whatever it is, Writing 121 or whatever the class is, and make it only for high school students and then have another online courses for other students, the opportunity to not have the same expectations or the same grading criteria and relationship with the students is really out there. It seems that if we're allowing these students to take college credit and come into a program. I used to run a school that was on the edge of a college campus, and all of our seniors took courses at the university. They never had their own section. They just went right into the courses, and they were treated just like the other students. It seems like that makes a lot more sense to me. I'm sorry, Nicole, you
No,
had
it's
something.
okay. I just wondered how we would fit in our schedule a section. So how are you doing that when we're constantly paring down? Like, I can't conceive of how history could offer a section just for them.
Yeah, we can't either.
Okay.
Can I ask, so if we have students who need gen ed credit and are trying desperately to get in certain classes, and you're saying high school students are taking those spots before EOU students can get in?
They have their own sections, so they're not taking.
Well, I mean, in my class, 107, I have high school students from Malheur County, like on a waiting list, waiting to get in.
For which term?
For winter term now, and luckily it was full, but.
I don't think that was one of the courses that was.
Okay, the message came from the guidance counselor at the high school trying to get students into this class.
Well, that wasn't one of the courses that was part of the pilot. Sorry.
Oh.
So.
So this is, okay.
Yeah, just send me an email about that.
The other question that I would have, if you're setting up two sections, what about efficiencies? I mean, isn't it better to combine people in one section and fill it rather than have 15 here and 15 there?
These are all really good concerns that you raise, and we've talked about that, and we've looked at the list of online offerings for spring term, and there aren't very many online options for students who are paying full tuition. You know, that we can't this early in the game start reserving seats for high school students that are paying a third of the tuition. I mean, that just doesn't make good business sense.
Yeah, but that might be a false economy, because if you get students, if you admit students early, say seniors, to take courses as a regular university student here, so they can get the credit before they graduate from high school, and even if you're charging them just at cost or below cost, the familiarity and the experience they have with EOU seems like would make them much more likely to come to EOU. It seems like that sort of promotion ought to be a loss leader promotion. Actually, loss leader is not the exact description of it, but would be a promotion that we would do to encourage high school students to get used to EOU, to get our brand with them. The not accepting them at a lower priority because they're not paying full tuition, I think is not a valid argument. Peter?
You know how we have seniors register for juniors? If the high school students were the last ones to be able to register, I know we have a history of the students not registering when they're able. There's a lot of reasons for that, financial aid, all kinds of things. But it seems as though there could be a late high school, at time where they're the last ones to do it. Then they theoretically would only be able to fill the remaining seats. I don't know if that's, if we let all of the registration happen for college students, and then we open it up to high schools to fill.
That was the original plan, but the high schools want to know well in advance what classes are going to be available. And
Well,
so
welcome to
we do
college.
that.
Our students don't know what classes are available.
Well,
So,
but I'm telling you, that's the issue you ran
Yeah.
into. We don't know what's coming left.
Yeah.
2 weeks before the start of term sign up.
yeah, our students struggle with the same thing, right? So, I hear you. But we can't treat them you can't give the high school students the advantage then when we have, like John's saying, we have college students who can't get into the classes or don't know if they can take it that year. We don't want to create another paradigm where we're creating a whole system for the high school students that we haven't, our students.
Well, I would hope the goal is for high school students, and especially UOU students, to get our schedule in.
Where they do it on time.
That's
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, these are important factors, and we'll continue thinking about that. We do have a meeting with the superintendent Monday, so got to give him something. And You know, we could cascade or have rolling enrollments where we only open sections as they fill up. You know, we could talk about the process a little bit more, but we're going to have to nail it down by tomorrow to have a coherent message for the superintendent.
What would the load implications be in the mind of the administration? Are you anticipating these all be overload? Or are you imagining some of these sections might be inloaded with the restructuring that's, you know, ongoing?
Right, that's something that Tony and Regina are currently looking at, is where's the capacity, as well as what courses make the most sense that are gen ed and help high school students be successful, not only in that course, but in college.
Because it seems like that would be part of the discussion the faculty senate would want to be a part of too, because that changes the dynamics of each of these majors, each of these programs. If we're moving FTE to support, and when we have our individual majors being eroded, I mean, it's just a larger conversation. But the FTE load conversation always gets complicated, right?
Well, and possibly it's the whole, the larger issue that's being discussed statewide about accelerated learning, rather than keeping kind of a myopic view of what's happening at Eastern. It's really bigger than Eastern. It's what, and I think it's worth having the conversation at Faculty Senate. What are the impacts of accelerated learning on higher education, period?
Well, I agree with that too, and I think what we need to do is project enrollment, regularize. We need to make a projection as we go down the line. We need to make a projection of how many accelerated learners in high school are going to be interested in taking a history class, or John, your class, or something like that, and then make the projection and load assignments based on that.
Well, and we're also thinking about making sure that our selection of courses in these pilots, that it's linked to a degree pathway, that we are utilizing that as an opportunity to have a student take one of these freshman level courses from EOU and matriculating here than when they're, you know, on campus preferably, so that they can see it not just as a one-off and I'm taking care of my gen eds, but they actually see us as a destination.
So it seems to me, for your conversation tomorrow, if we're looking at a pilot with certain classes, that we need as a university to assure that there's room in those classes for those students that we're asking to pilot our courses, which means that we are going to have to invest in overload or inload or something to make sure that it's there. Because if we offer a pilot and say, we'd really like you to do this pilot, I'm sorry, we've run out of room. And we just shot ourselves.
No, and that's the problem we're facing next Monday, is we're getting out of this a little bit early, but that's part of our lateness. In late fall, we didn't open it up until December 1 to the high school students, and it was a complete flop. So we're trying to take advantage of a little bit more lead time as these sorts of initiatives become a little bit more part of the normal environment of higher education. It's these pilots that are, we're putting our toe in the water to kind of test.
Yeah, we need to make sure that we're putting our toe in appropriately. Scott?
Yeah, what's the disparity in the price increases, the tuition differences between the students that are doing this the high school way versus the actual EOU students? Is that significant?
She said a third, right?
A third? I
About
didn't catch that.
$60.
Okay.
60.
And their grades are transcripted, and that's their EOU grade.
How price sensitive are these students, do you think, or are these?
All of our students are in Eastern Oregon are price sensitive.
Well, right, we are, but I mean, as far as these high schools, 'cause I mean, we're giving them a pretty decent advantage by being able to take college credit early. That's one advantage, and then you also hit them with a price advantage. Is that, I mean, is there room to actually maybe charge them full price, and then if they come to Eastern, give them discount.
Well, our competitors are, at the community colleges are offering it for either free, $19 a credit, or, so
Yeah.
we're not competing with our community college partners. It's still sort of up in the air because we're very early on in the pilot, to try and figure out whether we need to be planning ahead for tuition remission so that we're not shortchanging ourselves. Right now, 60 is about, well, it's definitely break even with, we're making a little bit of money on the margins.
I'm pretty sure that there's either an OUS bylaw or a state law about the pricing for the high school college credits. Yeah.
There has to be, otherwise it's.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
gonna
pretty
be right
sure.
this-
I was reading the bylaws of the Oregon University system yesterday for fun, and it was talking about the history of what the curriculum was offered and at what price. And there is something that happened, I believe, in the 50s or the 60s, where there, or maybe even the 70s, where there was a statement to encourage high school students to take college courses, but at a reduced price. So I think there is a.
Is it? I hope it's percentage based rather than.
I don't know.
$7 a
Is that
credit.
what
Yeah.
Is this the board documents?
Well, so yeah, if you go into
Those aren't
the
updated
Oregon
very
University systems bylaws, and you scroll down to like almost the very end, there's this huge long history about starting in 1919 what Oregon State could offer versus what Oregon University of Oregon could offer. And that's when we became a liberal studies granting institution in the 1960s, and it's got the whole frickin' history there. So it was.
We'll
in
look
there
at it,
somewhere.
and we've got a tuition change for high school students before J, so that may be something that needs to go to the tuition committee just to normalize it at 60 a credit. So Jay should be able to tell us if there's US policy, or if that's just an operational.
So would our rate, what we currently charge high school students be approved in state levels?
I would think so.
So it would follow if there were these bylaws included that.
Yeah, and that's probably what it is as part of an approval, that just like fees, you can't just slap a fee on a course, that it has to go through this process of approval.
There you are.
Hi, I just want to add two things, Valerie, about the plan. I like that it's not just enrollment, but it's just the student getting college credit. That's great. I prefer the student to be enrolled with other college students because I think the context of learning helps those students acclimate to college. They need to learn alongside other college students. Otherwise, it's just an extended high school experience because their expectations and their, like the students put pressure on one another to perform at a certain level. And if all the students in the class are at high school level, where's the sort of supportive pressure that encourages them to act at the college level? The other thing I want to mention is that online learning is often text-based, and many of our students are not text-based learners. They are interactive learners and other kinds of learners. And so in extending an opportunity to take online college courses, we need to be very careful about educating them on the limitations of the medium.
Well, and these, I would guess, because I've addressed it in my point here, that these aren't just going to appear, and there's going to be a conversation between the dean and the faculty member who is going to be asked to open their course to high school students. So that's not something that is just going to happen and you find out about it day one. You may not end up with any high school students in your class because no high school students signed up for it, but you would have a consultation with your dean before we would release which courses are the ones that are open.
Well, Sarah, we'll look forward to hearing more about this program. Scott.
Javier has his hand up.
Thank you. Hi, Javier, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Just an observation, and it's come up a few times. As we go towards our new board of governance, it's recruitment, shared governance structures, I think in a very strange sort of way, we're really in uncharted territory here in terms of where we're going and how we're getting there. It's manifesting itself in virtually every area. As we look at outreach to these communities, for example, I'm getting hostile phone calls from my colleagues at Treasure Valley Community College and the Blue Mountain Community College that we're in their backyard being more aggressive recruiting for freshmen. Yes, we are. It's true. And that historical lines of demarcation have really started to go away, and it's really a free-for-all as we start to go after students. Yes, it is. And it's almost as if the state has set us up on this kind of Darwinism on steroids to see who will survive down the road. And so as we go down this path collectively, there are not necessarily models in place that give us a lot of direction, but rather we're going to be kind of going and learning and tripping, but probably needing to communicate very clearly with one another as we learn these lessons as we go down the pipe, because it's new. And it's a very strange thing to talk to my colleagues at Treasure Valley or Blue Mountain and say, yes, in fact, we are aggressively going after students who historically would have gone to you. We think they should come to us. And we are not going to be shy about doing that. This outreach to high school students, again, they're not thrilled that we're doing this, because they see this as their territory, as it were. And we're going to keep, I think, running up against this out here in terms of our competition for finite resources, in this case, students. So, again, I just want to remind folks we're very much in uncharted territory, but it probably reminds us all the need to communicate regularly and clearly as much as we can.
Thank you. Tom?
As I listen to this, I think the thing we have to think about with this, and what Javier is saying is exactly right. We're entering into a competitive environment. One of the things we have to think about, what's being proposed, what we're talking about, we're not the first university to do this. There are other universities that are doing this already. So it's not like we're presenting something new. We're trying to figure out how to best fit it into Eastern Oregon and how we fit into the culture of what we're doing. I don't think that when we look at this, that it really is or should be a competitive model to our students that are here, our students on campus, but really how do we provide access? Now I'm going to say some things that might not everybody agree with, but here you go. We have programs out there, accelerated programs out there that we have no control over. We have high school teachers teaching college classes. We have students that are going to community college to get college classes. For me, that's a concern. We have an opportunity to provide accelerated programs taught by college students that we can ensure those students are getting college double credit. And I think that if we're really thinking about this from our vantage point, then it really be something that's beneficial. I do think that the concerns that are brought up about it being a competitive model with the students here, we really do need to take under consideration. But as far as looking at this avenue, it's going to happen. If we don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So we have to really figure out how do we make it work within our system of what we're doing. I know that one of the things that Nancy mentioned about our types of students, we need to have that conversation as well. I think what our students are showing us is that online is really significant for them. Think about what's happening even in the college business. More than half our students are online students. So that suggests that that's the medium that they really prefer. And that's a medium they feel that they're successful in. So as we look at this, we need to really understand the audience and understand which of those students can do this online and which cannot, and how do we really work within that. So what is growth?
Any other questions for the fellows? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move on to the EPC section of our report. And Sally, can you join us up here?
I'm sorry? Okay.
Am I read the EPCC agenda is all a consent agenda?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense exactly. And if it does, then I want to change it.
Could you say more about that?
I want to talk about two theater things which seem to have been incorrectly transcribed from EPCC. I can pull those out individually, or we can talk about them, or
If you could indicate the things that you have concerns about, and then we can have a consent agenda item that doesn't have those in there, and maybe approve those, and then go on to the discussion of those. Does that work?
that's fine by me.
Okay.
No, it's the new courses, and I think really it's mostly typographical, but let me arrange my ducks. The first is Theater 260 under new courses. Indicates that it's DPD, Gen Ed, and I think lower division of the WR. Turn the page. Yes. 260, Theater 260. But at EPCC, they did not approve the DPD. There is no DPD paperwork, so I don't want to make the mistake. I don't have 260 DPD.
362 is.
260 is G, UWR.
Okay.
It's taken off on mine too, so it was
Okay.
up there at some point apparently taken.
I must have printed my.
I printed this right before we came.
I printed this yesterday. My
And it's been changed since.
Okay, so it's not DPD. I think it still shows DPD on the check sheet for the major. Am I right there? And on the course action form? Okay, there's just places where it exists, and EPCC didn't approve this DPD, and I just want to make really sure that it doesn't slide in because it's on some forms and not on others. So 260 has no DPD. That's what should be true.
Tell me we pull that out and pass it with no DPD.
Great. I don't think they're asking for it, but I'm just for clarity's sake, right? And my second query is about,
Make sure that it's.
let me make sure it's an actual thing. Theater 475, is that on everybody's? Okay.
Yes.
That is a course that came up last year as,
Nicole, I would
you
like
want to
to,
just pull it up and talk about it later?
well, what I'd like to do is give Sally a chance to respond to what you just said about things not being there.
We can do this two ways, John. We can either pull the stuff and talk about it, or Sally probably doesn't have to explain anything. It's simply clerical. I totally understand.
Okay, then go.
Yeah. I do want to discuss the merits of Theater 475, and I will do those now, or I will do those when you think it's appropriate.
Thank you. So are those the two items I have, Theater 260 and Theater 475?
Correct.
And you'd like to pull those from the consent agenda and put them on the action agenda? Are there any other concerns about the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull Hume 104, just because I have some questions about it.
Thank you. Got it. Anything else? Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with these items pulled?
Move.
Second. Third.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda with those items approved, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So let's take these in the order that they were presented to us. Does it make sense to talk about the 260 clerical item first, and then Nicole, then Theater 475, and then the Hume 104?
That's fine.
Okay, let's do that.
Shall I speak?
Yes, please.
You need a motion. So move to approve that course as clearly non-DPD in all paperwork.
Yeah, so what I'm moving is to approve the theater program check sheet, which has to be passed with all the changes, with the slight modification of scratching out DPD for Theater 260.
Do I have a second for that? Second. Thank you. Discussion. Sally?
No. It's tiny, right, Sally? It's just a tiny thing.
It's tiny, but it affects.
Right. It goes in
Our meeting
the
this
banner and everything, so.
No, it just affects what we have to do in 2 days.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Further discussion?
Well, it
All
wasn't-
DPD.
It wasn't supposed to be there. It was a typo, right? Is that what you established?
I don't know.
They brought it up for DPD. They changed their mind.
No.
DPD was
it's
tabled.
Tabled, and
Okay.
it's being resubmitted this Thursday, so it's gonna come back through, I'm hoping.
So we're approving the course for 2 of the 3 things today and potentially the 3rd
Yes.
thing later. That's fine.
So do we need a motion for this then?
We do. We're amending the check sheet, which we will amend again if they get DPD passed. But this is how stuff becomes true, just like slips, that it becomes a fact. It's weird.
Any other comments, discussion? All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Nicole, the second one, please.
My second question is about Theater 475, which was proposed last year as Film 467 in almost exactly the same form. This won't come as any surprise to you. History has a history of film and history of film in America course. We feel that this is redundant, and particularly now that theater doesn't have a film concentration, which I think is what you guys were working on last year, and it looks like you've moved away from that, because I think you've eliminated concentrations totally.
Yes.
So this is the only film course in your slate, and we simply think that we're doing it, and we will lose enrollment. And so my history colleagues have asked me to raise the issue of redundancy.
So, well, emotionally, my response is, why should history have the market on film courses? Because there's other disciplines that have film courses.
But it's a history of film course, so we would
Right.
say that we're historians. That's why.
Right, but then taking that view, then you would also co-opt theater history.
If we taught it, I suppose we would.
So, I mean, I understand the history aspect, but theater and film has had a history since film came about. So, it's, yes, we pulled back from last year's proposal of film for a variety of reasons. One is that we're in the process of losing another faculty member to retirement, and that would be a major part of our film aspect, so we had to rethink it. But we wanted to still include something for the campus and the online community that makes connections with Hollywood, the American film, and theater, and give them an option in our program.
Here.
Mike, do you guys is there specific problems you have with the histories class of things that aren't being addressed in that class that meets the needs of your students?
Well, here's a little history of this term. I sent out an email to all disciplines that on the books were teaching film courses to get feedback, and my hope was to include them into our programmatic changes as options. Aside from Nancy's response to me from English writing, no other discipline responded to me. So then I went ahead and included this one course in the theater program because I wanted to give an option in theater because no one else got back to me with their plans or with all the restructuring and that. So that's part of it.
But I mean, that's a different. That's not really answering my question. I mean, I understand that that's the backstory, and that's probably incredibly frustrating. But pedagogically, if there's a class that's already on the books that meets the needs of your students, then it seems if you're adding one.
See, I don't know.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I didn't get any feedback. So to do what we want to do and felt would benefit our students both on campus and online, and to provide variety, since there is a close, and it makes sense that theater and film have this relationship since the early 20th century. That's what we did. So since I didn't get feedback, I wanted to, that's what I did. And if I would have gotten feedback, then I would have said, okay, programmatically, we said, students take this course from.
So you don't know if it meets the needs yet because you haven't had that conversation.
No one got back to me except English writing, and then we just let it go in theater.
So it could meet the needs.
It could meet the needs, but I don't know what other programs that had been teaching film, what their plans were moving forward.
So it seems to me that Peter makes a good point. If the course that history is taking satisfies the needs of the students, then there's no need for the course, the 475 that's being proposed here. But if it doesn't do that, then there seems to be a legitimate need.
Right. The one question, and the question was, because this our course 475 is not only taught on campus, but is part of our online plan to offer a theater with one film course online minor option for students. And so a film course that's being taught by another discipline has to do both on campus and on.
And that
They do.
doesn't-
History does it.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Nicole, are the outcomes for the theater course parallel to those of your course? I'm wondering about, focus, emphasis.
That's a good question. There is only one learning outcome for this course. So it parallels the multiple learning outcomes in our courses. Rebecca teaches those. One reason you might not be back is she's on sabbatical. I emailed her the Senate agenda and just said, do you have any thoughts on this? And she wrote me back. But I think that probably is one reason you didn't get a response, is she teaches this. And I don't have her syllabus in front of me, Donald. I couldn't quote, but the one that is here seems similar.
And our proposed course is set up so that I can teach it, which is the plan if it goes forward, or as we move forward, that another faculty in theater could teach it from a different perspective of American film. So it was sort of left open to so a wide range of the aspects of Hollywood can be addressed. So it is not necessarily as specific as some courses.
Other comments?
It just seems it's problematic when we start competing over students internally. I mean, it's kind of getting sad. I mean, are you planning on teaching this overload?
No.
Mike, it's inloaded?
No, it's all inloaded.
I mean, I understand the drama of EOU, but this isn't awesome. Because it's clearly what it is you need to have a certain number of SEH in theater. You need to have a certain number of SEH in history. And we're fighting over the minuscule amount of students that we have accessible to us. I mean, it's kind of a problem.
But could I make a suggestion?
Thank you. Go ahead.
John?
Yeah.
So a suggestion may be to simply take the course back and rethink it and make it have a different, rather than history of theater, maybe it could be adjusted more for history of film, sorry. It could be adjusted to be much more specific to the needs of your students, and in a way that it would not bump into the sort of survey broad history of film class. And then you could still keep it and then bring it forth. If you feel there should be a film component in your degree, which I think is, that's up to you.
That's the long-term thought, because after, like I said, Ken Bush is in the process of retiring, going through motions, and Ken Will and I, who will be the remaining theater faculty, we have to sit down and decide where we want to go, because we're also losing our costume design professor after this year, so we have some thinking to do. So, and that was sort of why to include the film course this time around, to see if you could, if that would have enough interest to carry that further with a proposal to replace Ken Bush with a person with that expertise and that too, so.
Well, it seems to me that Peter did describe what we have here as a dilemma, is that history's has a course that seems to be satisfying the needs of this course that your department has proposed. And it sounds like that we don't need both of them.
Well, that's just my opinion. I mean, I think voting is a really good way of solving dilemmas, but everybody knows I think that.
Is it worth tabling this until the conversation could be had between history and theater about whether the existing program would meet their needs?
That's what I'm thinking, because it sounds like that conversation hasn't really happened. The instructor is on sabbatical now.
Professor Martin.
Oh, it's Rebecca's class. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Yes.
Why don't we do that? And if, Deanna, do we need a motion to table this?
Yes, we do.
And then it will come back at our next meeting?
Only if somebody moves to untable.
All right.
Once it's on a table, it's.
So I'll entertain a motion to table.
I would move to table.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Stephen?
I just have a question about the Hume 104. I just want to know a little bit more about it, because it says within that it's designated only for students in the Education First We Share program. And I couldn't find anything about that on the EOU webpage. And Nicole said she found it on a web search, but...
It's a special course just for that program. That is an educational tour company. They offer tours mainly to high school students, high school groups.
Tours to places, right?
Tours, international tours,
Okay.
yes. International, educationally oriented tours.
And you say
so,
this is tours for high school students, and our students would be then assisting on these?
No, our students do
No,
not
this
take
is
these
Eastern
courses at
Promise.
all. Yeah, this is
Oh, I
through
see.
Eastern
Excuse me.
Promise. So, and it's a program that Ray Brown has been involved with as a tour leader. And so students from any high school in the country going on one of these tours has the opportunity to enroll in this class and get college credit for their tour and a project and other coursework that they complete on the tour.
As part of Eastern Promise.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's currently being offered as a Hume 110?
Yes.
So it needs to be offered as a 104 because we can only offer 110 per cert.
And how long are they on these tours?
It varies, usually 10 days, but some of them have been as long as 3 weeks.
How does that end up being 3 credit hours?
The amount of coursework that they do in addition to the travel time, I mean, part of the trip counts towards seat time, but they're enrolled in the course during the duration of our term, so it's a 6 or a 10-week course. They have interaction with, it's Ray and I that teach the course, so they have interaction with us throughout. They do a project proposal. They go through a series of research tutorials to learn about college-level research. They collect data while on tour. They have to do a research paper before they go, and then they do a project after they come back.
I thought it looked quite rigorous.
It is.
Yeah.
And, you know, not everybody passes, which is always distressful to their parents, but.
Okay, so I realize that we started this discussion without a motion. Is there a motion that we need to have?
I'll move to approve it.
I'll second.
Okay.
My question's been answered.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we have got to the, thank you, Sally. You were a very good companion. Right, okay. Anything for the good of the order?
Your remaining art faculty are having an exhibition opening this Friday.
This Friday?
Yeah. Yeah, both of us. However many is left by the.
Now,
There's still 3 of you, right?
There's actually 4.
Okay.
So one to keep track.
Don't you have more room for your stuff?
I do, actually. I got a bigger office out of it.
Thrilled. You have to do a different scale.
Speaking of Darwinian.
Any other items for the good of the order? Senators, thank you. We are adjourned.
So Sarah, it's making me crazy.